Welcome to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Ted Lieu. He is a member of the California State Senate. He is a nominee for a U.S. congressional seat representing portions of the West Side and South Bay in Los Angeles County. So I want to speak with you, though, about an issue that touches both the state and the federal government, kind of straddling your two worlds, and that deals with fundraising and limits that are placed on fundraising. Let's go back to 2010 and discuss a U.S. Supreme Court case called Citizens United. Counselor?
That was one of the most horrible decisions our Supreme Court has ever made. It basically said corporations are people, which is really stupid because I can't remember the last time that I went to a movie with a corporation or had dinner with a corporation. But because they said that, corporations now can virtually spend unlimited amounts of money to flood political campaigns, and they have in fact been doing that. The Koch brothers, for example, have just spent huge sums of money to influence elections in their favor.
And what the crux of the decision was is that because corporations are people, for the purposes of the First Amendment, the corporations have a First Amendment right to free speech, and money is speech, according to this theory.
Correct. So because they said corporations are people, there was a case before that, as you said that people have the right to free speech and money is speech. So they then added the corporations are people to let corporations now, under the guise of free speech, spend unlimited amounts of money in political campaigns.
And this year there was a decision, I think it was called the McCutcheon case, and that also expanded the purview of spending in political campaigns.
Correct. So Citizens United primarily benefit corporations. McCutcheon said to individuals who used to have an aggregate cap in how much they can give to political parties and candidates, it said that no longer is there this cap. So that decision really only applied to one class of people, which is billionaires and multimillionaires that spent so much money they ran up against a cap in how much they could actually spend in giving to Congress members and senators and parties. So now you can go to one really wealthy billionaire and ask for $500,000 to a political party, and various Congress members and senators have all that be split up. It used to be they had a cap that was around $70,000.
Do these decisions apply to California state elections?
So the McCutcheon one, actually both do.
Because it's a American right, but I still feel like we have limits, no?
So there are limits on how much a single person or corporation can give to your particular campaign committee. But what Citizens United basically allowed is all these super PACs to be formed, where they would funnel vast amounts of money, and then that super PAC would do a TV ad or something
independent
like that.
expenditure,
That
essentially.
Is correct.
So a couple of years ago, I remember one of your colleagues, Mike Gatto, in the Assembly, I should say, he proposed that California support the calling of a constitutional convention to overturn Citizens United. Our last constitutional convention was in 1789. But talk to us about that strategy.
That was embodied in AJR 1, which passed the legislature this year. I was a proud supporter of it. And so California has called for a constitutional convention. That is one of two ways to amend the Constitution. The other way...
But before we go to the other way, we'll go there in a second. Some concerns were expressed with regard to AJR 1 in that if you call for a constitutional convention, any issue could be brought up.
That is correct.
Mr. Gatto has suggested that no, you can limit the scope of the Constitutional Convention. What's your sense?
We don't know because it hasn't been done since 1789.
Of course, right.
So the other way to amend the Constitution, which is how we've done it the last 27 ways, 27 times, is to have a specific constitutional amendment. It's how the women's suffrage movement did it. It's how every other amendment came into being. And you basically have Congress do a constitutional amendment, and then you have the states ratify it. But the actual way it happens is you have a lot of people across America saying, look, enough is enough. We need a constitutional amendment. It's really a bottoms-up approach that then forces Congress to act.
And I believe the rule is that you need a 2/3 vote of the Congress and a 3/4 vote of the states. Did I say that correctly, sir?
Yes.
Okay, so you proposed to get the momentum rolling on this through what will be on the ballot in November, not maybe, will be, is known as Proposition 49.
Correct.
What is Proposition 49?
It came as a result of my legislation, Senate Bill 1272, that was sponsored by many groups such as MOVI, which stood for Money Out, Voters In, as well as Common Cause, the Clean Money Campaign, and many other good government groups. And it put on the ballot Proposition 49 that asked the voters through an advisory ballot measure, do you want to overturn Citizens United in this line of cases through a constitutional amendment? The point of this is to get other states to do it, and then when you have a lot of states also having the voters express their opinion, it then sends a powerful message to Washington, D.C. that says, please act, and the states will ratify your amendment.
So there has been some criticism against this approach. Howard Jarvis, for example, I know came out saying this is a waste. It's an advisory measure. What's the point? How do you respond to that?
So the city of Los Angeles did an advisory measure a few years ago, Proposition C. It got overwhelming support on this exact issue, Citizens United. When a state does it, it sends the message that, look, this state will ratify that amendment should the voters this November pass Proposition 49. So it's a signal to Washington, D.C. that you can count on California to ratify a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United.
Let me ask you, maybe, I don't know if you know this, but if there is a proposed amendment to the Constitution, the ERA, for example, Equal Rights Amendment, do the voters vote on whether to ratify, or does it go to the legislature?
The legislature.
It would go to the legislature. So
this sends a message to the legislature.
To the legislature.
And also to Washington, D.C. But really, it's also helped spark a nationwide movement to get other states to do this, because the way you get Congress to act and how it's been done in the past is you have really a bottoms-up grassroots movement that really puts pressure on D.C. to then do the constitutional amendment.
Here's the challenge. I have no doubt that you could line up every blue state in this nation to support what you just described. Every red state in the nation would come out against it, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. We are in such polarized times that people simply look at who's supporting it, and that's how they make their vote. And so, 2/3 of the Congress, 3/4 of the Senate, or 3/4 of states, that's a huge hill to climb.
It's been done 27 times in the past.
It has.
And it is true that we right now are polarized.
Yes.
In 2008 and 2010, we were even more polarized. And if you remember back then, the voters were very angry. They elected very angry legislators.
Right.
They just wanted to shut down government. But in 2012, economy got somewhat better. Less angry people got elected. And keep in mind, Congress changes every 2 years. Congress passed a budget, bipartisan, which had been done for a while.
Right.
And then this year, you're going to see what has been happening, which is the Tea Party has been losing most of their primaries.
Eric Cantor, though, lost to a Tea Party opponent.
But most analysts don't say it was a Tea Party thing. They say Eric Cantor lost because he was Eric Cantor and really lost touch with the district. But even acknowledging that race, every other race they pretty much lost the Tea Party. And so you're seeing even less angry people get elected this year. And I believe in a few years you have a better functioning Congress.
But I think about 2015. Sure, Ted Lieu, most analysts believe, will be victorious, representing a Democratic district. I mean, I'm not saying that, but you look at the Cook Report or whatever it is. But, this is California. The Senate could go Republican. Will the Democrats take back the House? I don't know many pundits that would say yes.
I believe in 2016, a presidential election, the Democrats, in my opinion, will take back the House.
And I don't think that you're alone in that decision, but it just seems like every 2 years we go through these swings of red, blue, red, blue. And how does that play into a desire to overturn Citizens United?
Well, so constitutional amendments are not speedy. It will take some time. But
I want to continue this conversation when you come back. Okay?
Yes.
His name is Ted Lieu, candidate for Congress. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.